Hi, everyone. My name is Risa. I am a recovered alcoholic. I know that this group is not affiliated with any of the 12-step fellowships. However, I am going to be speaking from my experience in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and going through these 12 steps. My home group is it's a Zoom meeting. We meet on Sundays at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. It's the PPG Webster meeting. We go through the big book line by line, page by page, with the study guide that was made in PPG Dallas by Cliff Bishop and Joe from the Joe and Charlie gang. Um, my sobriety date is March 3rd, 2004. And that's it. No, just joking. Get that stuff out of the way. I am outside and the sun seems to like to follow me around. So you may see me moving around the table as the sun moves around the house. Just I hopefully, it's actually kind of going away. So maybe that won't happen. Anyway, just I'm always honest when I talk. I mean, I think most of us are honest when we talk, but I'm like brutally honest of telling people exactly where I am. And so like just so Summer reached out to me. Thank you, Summer, so much for asking me to come out and talk. I love it. I love talking about the 12 steps. I love talking about the big book. It's one of my absolute favorite things to do. But we were talking about, oh, what steps should you talk on? And we were talking about this and that. She's like, well, like we haven't had people talk on these few steps. And I was like, well, whatever you want me to do. And so she told me 6 and 7. And at first my ego was like, yeah, I can do that. No big deal. And then like a day later, I'm like, oh my God, what did I sign up for? A whole hour on just 6 and 7? Like, like what did I do? And then self-will and fear kick in, and I start listening to speakers on 6 and 7, and I start getting my ego and my pride and everything. I'm like, oh, I'm never going to sound as good as KDP doing this talk, and I'm never going to sound as good as this person doing this talk. And I ended up calling Paige earlier, a few hours earlier today, and I'm calling because I have all this fear. And and she and I talked for a little bit, and it was so funny because it was just we started talking about it, and it's just what I tell my sponsees all the time, like just you know get quiet with God before this meeting. Ask God to come through you. Stop willing it all. And isn't that just what seven's about? Like like getting to the action of letting God take the reins. And so here I am. I got quiet with God. I asked God to speak through me. So whatever comes out, is what comes out. And I should also say that this comes from my experience. Your experience may be different from my experience. My experience is what's worked for me so far. Sometimes it works, sometimes I fall flat on my face, and I get this exciting ability to learn from it, and all of that. And if your experience is different, right on, rock on, as long as it's working for you. I can't really I can't say anything about it, right? So it's it is literally impossible for me to talk about 6 and 7 alone. I have to I really have to go back to one. I have to, I come into Alcoholics Anonymous, and after a few meetings, after a few years, and being in Alcoholics Anonymous, I didn't realize what my real problem was. Like I thought I was miserable. I thought life was treating me poorly. I knew alcohol had something to do with it, but I really wasn't sure what this whole thing was about. And eventually, I'm not going to go into that whole story, but eventually I did find a woman who took me through the steps and took me through the first step that tells us what alcoholism is. And I really needed to know that, because if I'm going to follow the same steps you did, if I'm going to take the solution that you took, that I don't necessarily want to take, then I need to know that I have what you have, you know. And so she took me through, and she talked to me about this twofold illness. She talked to me about how when I put alcohol in my body, I can't control it. You know, I can't control how much I drink. Um, um, and then she also talked to me about how, you know, I can't just set the alcohol down and put the plug in the jug, you know. um I went out a whole bunch of times. I was one of those people who didn't go out to get wasted every single time. That wasn't my story. I wasn't like, oh yeah, party every night. I really was like, I need to go to work tonight. I need to go to work tonight. Let me just have one drink. You know, I'm just going to go out with the girls. I had fear of missing out big time. I wanted to show up to the bar, and I just wanted to go out with the girls, get the tea, and have a drink with them. And I every single time I couldn't possibly do it. I ended up almost every single time at the end of my drinking, I ended up not making it to work, losing the job, ending up in places that I shouldn't be ending up, living in this incomprehensible demoralization that the book talks about. And you know, the doctor talks about this cycle that, you know, I come out of this and I make a firm resolution to stop. And every single night at the end of my drinking, I made this firm resolution to stop, only to, you know, by the time I woke up the next day, 2 hours later, I'm already rebuying everything I just threw out. I'm digging through garbage cans, finding where, you know, where is it? What did I go? Or calling everybody up, trying to have another experience. Try it again. Let's, you know, this time it's going to be different. And then, so, you know, if alcohol is my problem, then just don't drink, right? However, I can't do that. I can't do that. That I have a mental obsession, and the book talks about it, but I find it in my own experience time and time and time again, that I have this mental obsession where I can't stay stopped. I drink until I need to stop, and then I stop until I can't live that way anymore and I need a drink. And that's how my life looked like. And I come into Alcoholics Anonymous and I find out that I need a power greater than myself. I need the psychic change. I need that no human power can relieve me of this obsession. And I find this out, and you know, at first when I didn't really understand the steps, and I didn't understand alcoholism, and I didn't understand any of it, I didn't like that. I was not a fan, not a big fan. But once I was able to put what the book talked about up to my own experience and see my powerlessness in my life, and have a first step, a true real first step experience that wasn't just mental, but it really was this hardcore shot to the heart of like, you're gonna die out there. You know, you're gonna die out there if you continue to do this. um I was open. I was at least open to working the steps. So um so I'm like, okay, good. This higher power thing, it comes up, it's going to help me with my obsession over alcohol. Great, fantastic, wonderful, right? And I come to believe in my idea of a higher power at that time is going to help me with this. And I'm all right with this, you know. And then we go over into the third step. And the third step is this great bait and switch thing we got, you know, because up until the third step, we're still most of the time talking about alcohol, right? And then, you know, on the third step on page 60, and I go around and in circles in the big book. So if you have one with you, great. If you don't worry about it. But so the third step on page 60 has this requirement. The first requirement of this third step is the first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. Wait, what? Because we're here for my drinking. We're here for the alcohol. We're not here for everything else. I'm doing pretty good managing everything else. I'm not really doing a very good job at all of managing anything else. Um, but in my head, you know, when we get here, I'm like, no, the problem is just alcohol. And if alcohol was just the problem, then I could put the alcohol aside, you know. But what happens when I put the alcohol aside is I can't deal with a life. I can't deal with life on life's terms, because the thing is I think I know how life's terms should be, you know. Like I think that life should be A, B, C, and D in order for me to be happy. I'm really not thinking about your happiness at all in these plans. You know, sorry, I love a bunch of you on this meeting. I know a bunch of you, but I'm really not sitting here going, oh, how can I make Ryan's day happy, or Roy's day happy, or Summer's day happy? I'm not. I'm thinking about how the world can measure up to make Risa's life happy. And if Risa's happy, then those people can be happy, because I'll be happy. And and what I find is that's not usually the case. Um and so the third step goes into all of these ways that I'm trying to manage my life. And it's going into all of these ways that I'm selfish, I'm self-centered. A wonderful, wonderful, wonderful man, Charlie Parker, who unfortunately just passed. And our hearts and love go out to Katie and his family and everybody who's known him. I was listening to a third step by him, and he talked about how it's not that I think that I'm great, and it's not that I think that I'm horrible. It's that I just think about me. You know, it's all I think about is me all the time, is me, 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 me. Even when I think I'm thinking about you, it really has to do with how are you going to be affecting me, you know. And that is really at the heart of what my alcoholism is. You know, that is really at the heart of this thing. And so, you know, there's questions in this third step. What is his basic trouble? You know, admitting he may be somewhat at fault. This is after people have stepped on my toes, or I've stepped on other people's toes and they've retaliated. It feels like they stepped on my toes, but usually it's, you know, I'm trying to move this and arrange the lights and arrange the ballet and, you know, making up, you know, the script. And I still do that. Like, let's get something straight. I've done these steps. I know the third step. I am very knowledgeable on self here. And this is the sixth and seventh step in essence, is I can't stop myself. Like I need a spiritual awakening and a spiritual experience to be able to change this life around for myself. I can't do it within myself. All right. And so, but I'm so busy changing these things, and I'm not giving anyone the script. I have a husband, he's also in this program. And you know, if out of anybody, he should know the script better than anyone else, you know. And yet he comes home, he does something stupid that's driving me nuts, and I'm like, I'm so angry that he's not following the script that I've kept secret. Like, I haven't even told him the script, but he's not following it, you know. And it ticks me off. And usually I have to clean it up either that night or the next day, depending on on where we're at spiritually that day. um but I'm so busy doing this. And the thing is and I was talking to one of my sponsees about it yesterday, is even when it does come off the way I want it to, there's still something wrong with it. There's still, either it comes out perfectly and now I'm worried about something else or getting more. Is it going to last? Or, you know, okay, now this worked out perfectly. This is not going to make me happy anymore. I'm not content enough with it. Let me go on to the next project of ruining, you know, somebody else's life to maintain my happiness, you know. And that's what my life looked like. And the first time I went through the third step, I really didn't see this at the time. You know, the third, you know, my sponsor and I were reading this, and I'm like, yep, that's great. And we moved on to she was like, can we make a decision to move on with the rest of the steps? I'm like, yes, because I don't get this one at all. I have no, like, I'm just like, sure, yep, sure, okay. And we moved on to 4 and 5, which is that we make a list, and we make this list of resentments, and we make this list of fears, and we make this list of sex conduct, and we make this list, and as I am making this list, I'm starting to see 3 coming out in it. At the very first time I did my steps, 3 was a hindsight step. 3 was more of something I looked back on and said, oh, now I get it. Now I get it. Since then, I understand it a little bit more. I may not see it all the time in my own life, but when I start reading it, that's when, like, I'm walking throughout the day and being like, oh, yep, there it is. Oh, yep, there it is, or I'm just even thinking I might not even do the action, but like the first thought in my brain is like selfishness and self-centeredness. On page 62, that is what the third step is talking about: selfishness and self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. Driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity, we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. 100 forms of these things. 100 forms. Many, many, many forms. And so I go on and I go to 4 and 5 and I write my list. And in that fourth column, it says, all right, what did you do, Risa? Let's turn this. What did you do? How did you get the ball rolling? How did you step on the toes of those people and they retaliated? How did self show up? How did self, come out in these defects of character? And I start to see those things. And then I sit down with my sponsor, because if I don't quite see them, she is going to point them out. And so I do a fourth and a fifth step. And I find out that this idea of I'm walking around asleep dreaming I'm awake. I'm completely asleep to who I really am. I'm completely asleep to how much my brain is trying to work to make life acceptable to me, to make me feel comfortable in my own skin, and it's failing every single time. And I'm starting, this last time I did the steps in thoroughness, and I continually regularly do them, an inventory with my sponsor. I went into this more in-depth fourth step inventory, which really gets to the heart of these old ideas that I've been growing up with, that I came to when I was 2 years old, 3 years old. They're these really old ideas of what people should be like, what different relationships should be like, what what a boss looks like, a job looks like, a wife looks like, all of these things, these old ideas that tend to these thoughts that tend to manifest themselves in these defects of character. And so I'm sitting with my sponsor and I'm becoming aware. And my sponsor loves to say awareness is the blessing. And awareness is the blessing because on page 62 too is one of what I think is the greatest promises in this whole book. So our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. So if my troubles weren't of my own making, there's nothing I can do about it. But as I become more aware of how my troubles are of my own making, there's something, this book gives us a thing that we can do. It gives us actions that we can take. And so I become aware of those troubles. I become aware of the actions I took to cause those troubles. And so this is where we come to the sixth step. And listen, there are many other places people go to understand the sixth step. And I was one of those. I used to take my sponsees through this, and we get to the sixth step and I'd be like, all right, time to turn over to the 12 and 12 because this is just a paragraph. And I'd be like, like we got to go to this, we got to go to this. And that's great. And that's fantastic. And whatever is going to help you through these steps to understand them and to build your relationship and clear that stuff out with God, that is great. I have since started studying this book in greater detail. And in my journey, I have found that I don't need anything more for the 6th and 7th step that's in this book. I get to the 6th step, and the 6th step is on page 74, and I really have to go to the paragraph before that, or not 74. I got the wrong place marked. All right, it's on 76, and I do need to go to the paragraph before that. Okay. And one of the things I found as I'm going through these steps and re-going through the book and learning the book and studying it more is these steps were meant to be taken quickly. They were meant to be taken one right after the other, after the other, after the other. There was not a month in between. There was not a year in between. You need to get right. You got to clear this stuff out, because if my only hope for the relief from alcoholism is a relationship with my creator and this psychic change or spiritual connection, whatever you want to use, I can't have that until I'm cleared out. I can't let God in until there's room in my soul, in my heart, and my mind for that relationship. And so I need to get that cleared out. And that doesn't mean, I heard somebody say taking 4 and 5 without doing 6 and 7 is like putting all the garbage bags, or putting everything in garbage bags and just leaving it at the door, and I really relate to that. And so on 75, it talks about returning home. We find a place where we can be quiet for an hour. I'm good with quiet for 10 minutes. I like to be loud. I like to talk. I want to throw some music on. I want to talk to the cats. I want to talk to the bunny. I do not want to be quiet, especially after I just looked at some really hard truths about myself. I want to not think about them anymore. However, our book gives us different instructions. And so, okay, I have to be quiet for an hour. What do I do during that hour? Well, we have some instructions for that too. Returning home, we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour, carefully reviewing what we have done. All right. So we want to carefully review this stuff. What are we reviewing? Are we, we're meditating over the fact, do I really sincerely believe that when I put alcohol in my body, I can't control it? Do I really sincerely believe that I have absolutely no choice in if I put alcohol in my body? Do I really sincerely believe? Have I gotten to the point where I really believe that something bigger than myself, that is not human power, can relieve me of the insanity that I keep putting myself through over and over and over again of that first drink? Do I thoroughly believe that? Do I thoroughly believe that I am okay with making this decision to turn my will in life over to the care of God? Because in step 3, I made a decision. I didn't put the action behind it yet. The action's coming. The 4 and 5, 6 and 7. If you look at the prayer on 3, there's no amen. But then if you look at the prayer at the end of 7, there is. That's, there's a lot of work before that decision is an actual thing that I've done. And so, have I made a thorough and honest inventory, the best I can do at the time? That there is always going to be more revealed to me. There's always going to be more. I have a friend who said that as soon as he gets somebody into the 4th step, he tells them immediately, you're not going to get an A+ on this job. You're not getting an A+. Don't even worry about it. Just get it written. I have to do the best I can with what I have. Have I done that? And then I have to look at, have I been completely and thoroughly honest with the person I'm sharing that with? Have I let anything stay hidden? Have I kept anything to myself? What have I been thorough with all of this? So carefully reviewing what we have done, we thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know him better. I never really understood that until recently. But if I believe, and as I do, and some may not, but I believe that God is my creator and God has created me. And so if I believe that God is my creator and God has created me, then knowing myself better means that I know my creator better. I know his work just a little bit better than I knew it before. And so I thank him. Thank you, God. Taking this book down from our shelves, we turn to the page which contains the 12 steps, which is page 59, and we carefully review those 5 proposals, which I just talked about, and asking if we admitted anything. It talks about, for we are building an arch through which we shall walk a free man at last. Is our work solid so far? Are the stones properly in place? Have we skimped on the cement put into the foundation? Have we tried to make mortar without sand? And I'm not much of a building person. I don't fully know what all of this is all about, but I do know that if I'm going to be walking through an archway of stone, I don't want it to fall on my head. I know that I don't want it to just crumble down all over me. I want to be able to walk through that archway knowing darn well it's staying put and that I'm safe. And so I want to make sure that all of that stuff is in place. I want to make sure that it's strong, that it will hold, you know. And so, I go back and I meditate through all of this and I make sure I do that. So then on page 76, it says, if we can answer to our satisfaction, we then look at step 6. So if I can answer all of that to my satisfaction, and not to the satisfaction of my sponsor and not to the satisfaction of my loved ones, but in the inner, deep, secret place of my mind, I believe thoroughly and honestly that I have done the work to the best of my ability up until this point. I am now at step 6. We have emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Are we not? So now step 6 has a few questions for us to look at. Are we now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable? So when I was done with my 5th step, my sponsor would give me some notes and I would write some things in the columns of my 4th step, and I would write this and that. And then at the end, she gave me a list of defects of character that were very specific to me. Because I need specifics. I can easily be like, yeah, I'm selfish, I'm fearful, I'm ego driven, however, like those are very generalized. And so she gave me a list of ones that are very specific to me. And I have absolutely no problem telling everybody what that list is. I keep it with me. But my list is I'm overthinking, I'm controlling, I'm judgmental, I'm opinionated, I'm justifying, demanding, jealous, envious, impatient, attention seeking, impulsive, punishing, insatiable, needy, insecure, self-righteous, and rigid. And I have no problem sharing that with you, because the thing is I now have a relationship with a higher power that I'm trying to work on. I'm not trying to work on those things, but I'm trying to give those things. And as I said before, awareness of these is the blessing, but I sat down with that list, and each and every single one of them I went through. Are we now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable? And I asked that question to every single one. of those defects of character. And see, the thing is if I don't do that hour right away and I wait a month to do the sixth step, they're not that objectionable anymore. My ego is quick to regrow, you know, and I'm not going to be as willing as I was when I've just sat down face to face and admitted all of this stuff and have very clearly in my mind seen how I've tried to run the show, how I've tried to live by self-propulsion, how I've stepped on your toes and you've retaliated. I'm not seeing that as clearly anymore in a month or 2 months or a year, definitely not a year, you know? So I'm looking at this list immediately during this hour and I'm asking, am I ready? And for most of them, the answer is a big yes. I'm kind of grossed out by them. I'm like, this is disgusting. This is disgusting how I've run my life. And I'm ready. And then I asked myself, can he now take them all, everyone? How much, we read back in some earlier pages, faith without works is dead. How much faith do I have? You know, if I have faith that God can handle my alcoholism, why can't I have faith that he can handle my defects? Why wouldn't I have that faith? And so at this point, for me, in the steps, I absolutely believe that God will remove these from me. And sometimes what I've found that looks like is if I'm here and I'm still pretty rigid, especially when it comes to certain things program related, and which I pray to God on a regular basis for. If I'm here and the opposite of rigidity is here, and I'm willing to have God take it, it may just look like this, but it's a little bit of that growth that's going to take me to a new way of life each and every time, you know? And so, and then, I mean, Bill and our founders knew we're alcoholics. We're not God. We're not perfect. And then they've put in here over and over and over again, if you're not willing, it's okay. It's okay. Pray for the willingness to come. But while you're holding on to that one or two, let's get rid of the rest. You don't need to sit on all of them. If you're willing to let most of them go, if you're even willing to let one of them go, let's keep it moving, sister. And so we got this prayer, which is the next paragraph. When ready, we say something like this: my creator, I'm now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. Good and bad. I've found throughout my life, I've found through hindsight in Alcoholics Anonymous, that what I think is a defect has sometimes ended up being an asset. And sometimes what I thought was an asset ends up being one of my biggest defects. I don't know. I'm still not God. I think I know the awareness, but I'm still just this little blip on this giant marble in the universe, and I don't know it all. So you know what? Have all of me. Have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Again, some of my defects of character have put me into action for other people and have gotten me to be useful for others. And some of my assets have kept me sick and away from being of usefulness and helpfulness to others. And so I don't, use me as you will, God. In the fear part of the inventory, it says that we are in the world to play the role he is assigned. I'm not assigning roles anymore. I'm not assigning roles for myself. I'm not assigning roles for other people, but I need to show up in the roles that he's given me. And I don't know what that looks like every day. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. And we have then completed step 7. And that's it. That's step 7 in a nutshell. However, step 7 is pretty much the heartbeat of Alcoholics Anonymous. I've learned through and through that God can do for me what I cannot do for myself. There's a promise on page 63 in our 3rd step promises that he provided what we needed if we kept close to him and performed his work well. Well, what I need is to stay defect free. What I need is to stay clear so that I can be of usefulness to my fellows, so I can be of usefulness to God. You know, the decision I made in step 3 was that he's the principal. I'm the agent. I'm out there, you know, I pretend, you know, think about myself wearing this giant red shirt that says God's agent. And if I'm all acting a mess out there, I am not looking like a good agent for God, you know? And so what does this action look like? What does this willingness look like? I can't work on my own defects of character. Self-knowledge does not keep me sober. Self-knowledge that I am an alcoholic, that I am powerless over alcohol, my mind and body are just as powerless, does not keep me sober. And neither does self-knowledge keep my defects of character away. So what that looks like is when I'm doing step 10, and it talks to me about these actions that I take in step 10, that I continue to watch. I need to continue to watch for selfishness, self-centeredness, fear, anger, resentment. I'm not looking at the book right now, so I can't promise. I'm not reading straight from it, but I have to continue to watch for those things. And the way that I watch for those is I don't always say, hey, am I being selfish right now? I start to be like, oh yeah, I'm being closed-minded. Oh yeah, I'm starting to think I'm vengefully. Oh, my big one right now is I deserve. You know, I was on the phone earlier today, and as soon as I deserve starts to pop up in my head, I get quiet, I take pause, I go to God, you know, because in and of myself, I can't wake up and be like, all right, today I'm not going to think of my defects of character. Okay, today I'm not even going to I'm not going to let myself run the show today. I can't do that. But what I can do is I can have the awareness, and that awareness comes by being watchful, watching. So I take moments throughout my day and I watch, and I take moments and I actually evaluate, hey, how good am I doing the job that God has given me today? And I watch for those things. And when I watch for those things and they come up and they pop up right away, I ask God to remove those, just as I do in step 7. Just as I do in step 7, because it's not like I'm going to say step 7 and all of a sudden Reese's clear and free. That's not how my life is today. That is one way. I mean, at one point in my sobriety, I did think that. I did think that. I thought that as soon as I worked the 12 steps, I'd be free of selfishness. The 3rd step wouldn't apply to me anymore. The 7th step wouldn't apply to me anymore. And I got very, 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 very sick. It wasn't that I didn't think in the terms of I graduated this 12-step program, but I thought that the only thing I had left to do was bring this message to other alcoholics, and that's it. And I was very wrong. And so the heartbeat goes back to step 7. I can't. God can. So I'll let it. And the only way that I can continue to be aware and to go to God is to continue to be on watch, to continue to bring it to God. At night, I need to look throughout the day. How was I? What would my job performance be today if I were to ask God, hey, God, how am I doing? How would you rate me today? And if I'm not that good, that's fine. I don't need to get into self-pity on it. I don't need to beat myself up. I don't need to kick myself while I'm down. All I have to do is be like, all right, I know I need to do this better tomorrow. I need to spend some more time with my daughter. I really put her to the side yesterday, and I really caused some havoc between her and her brother because I canceled plans that I had promised her. I really gotta, because I wanted to sit on the couch and watch TikTok, you know, and so I got to do better next time. And so I bring that in the morning. I've got this list I've written at night of what I can do better. And I bring that into the morning and I say, God, I need you again. And I need you again. And I need you again. Because in the second step, I came to believe I'm not God. I came to believe I'm not God. And as long as I'm not God, I need to continually need God for this seventh step throughout my life, throughout my day, on a regular basis. I cannot get rid of my character defects on self knowledge alone. I need to have that spiritual awakening. I need to have that spiritual connection and relationship with my higher power. And and it's been an amazing journey. It's been an amazing journey, and I'm certainly not perfect at this at all. I'll be, again, I'm honest. I don't think I've done a nightly inventory for a week. I've done 10th steps, which are, in my head, they're, like, oh, you're about to get run down by the truck, get out of the way. Get out of the way. You're about to, there's a giant Mack truck coming at me with selfishness just on the front, and it's just zooming at me. Let's get out of the way. And I've been doing those on a regular basis, but that inventory, it's been a week. You know, I thoroughly believe that when I'm asked to do anything in my life or in Alcoholics Anonymous, God is trying to show me something. And with me talking to you guys about this, guess what I'm doing tonight? When I retire at night, I'm going to be getting out my nightly inventory sheet, and I'm going to be writing it down because I'm still plagued by self on a regular basis and laziness, and I got to do other things, and I put God on the back burner. But thankfully, that pertinent idea, see, God could and would if he were sought. I get to pick up that every day, and I can seek whenever I want. And that creator that I believe so strongly in will always be there, just waiting for me to come back. Oh, I know I didn't do 45 minutes, but I'm starting to feel like I have not much more left in me, and I love you all. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Summer, for asking me to be here and of service, and I will give it over.